This is Greece here. This is Turkey here. She lived in Macedonia and grew up in the city called Skopje, Macedonia, which was the capital. And here on the right is a picture of what it looked like in 1910. You'll notice that there are mosques in the picture. That's because this area was controlled by the Ottoman Empire at the time she lived. In other words, by a Muslim empire that was run out of Turkey right here. So here she is as a young girl. Her given name was Agnieszka Ganja Bohasiu. And she was born August 25th. Her mother's name was Drana. Her father's name was Nicola. They were both devout Catholics. Her name, we would give the name Agnes. Agnieszka is Agnes. And interesting also that her middle name, Ganja, meant rosebud or little flower in Albanian. But notice that she was Albanian by her parents were Albanians. She grew up in Macedonia. And her name, she had a Turkish name as well. This is a picture of her at the age of 6 when she had her first communion. So just like us, she had our first communion at roughly that age, first grade. So this is her on the right at 6, and tragedy happened in her life very early on at the age of 8. She lost her father. Father died. He fell ill from, they think, poisoning because he was involved in trying to free the Albanians from the Turkish rule. And she and her mother became very, very close. Her mother was a very pious and compassionate woman who was really committed to charity and modeled the behavior that Agnes, who became Mother Teresa, became so famous for. And this is a quote from her mother. She says, "My child, never eat a single mouthful unless you are sharing it with others." And she went on, and when Agnes asked who the people were that were eating with them, because her mother welcomed the poor into their house to share a meal with them, her mother said, "Some of them are our relations, but all of them are our people." So at the age of 6, as I said, she had her first communion. When she was about 12, one thing they did every year was they went to the church of the Black Madonna in Lecce. And this is the beautiful countryside where the church is. This was an area just north of her. She probably could have walked here. And then on the left is a picture of the Black Madonna. And it was at that age, at the age of 12, that she really felt her calling to service. And this is a quote from her. She was just 12, but it was then she knew she had a vocation to the poor. She wanted to go out and live the life of Christ as a missionary, not as a nun, interesting enough, but just to be a missionary to the poor. And that was at 12. But this was an important experience for her, even though she went every year. It was at the age of 12 when Christ really spoke to her heart. And for the next several years, she lived a normal life. She went to a Catholic school for primary school, and then she went to a public school for high school. She liked to sing in the choir. She had a good voice, so she was able to sing solo. But it wasn't till the age of 18. So she was 12 when she had the experience here with the Black Madonna, but it wasn't till 18 that she decided she wanted to become a nun. She was very happy. She had a very happy childhood, other than the loss of her family, but she was close to her mother and sister and brother. And at the age of 18, she decided to become a nun, and she joined the Sisters of Loreto, which is part of the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And she moved to Ireland, to the convent in Ireland, to become one of the Sisters of Loreto. So that was at the age of 18. At the age of 21, she made her first vows as a nun. And that's her, by the way, here, when she joined the convent. And at the age of 21, they sent her off to Calcutta, India. Calcutta, India, which you'll notice eventually she became known as Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And when she made her first profession of vows at the age of 21, she took the name of Teresa after Saint Teresa of Lisieux. So that's why she's known as Teresa. She adopted the name of her patron saint of Lisieux. And then at the age of 27, she finally made her final profession of vows. And as you all might know, nuns and monks, they make their vow is they take a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience. Poverty, chastity, and obedience. And so she continued and worked in Calcutta. She was on the way to Calcutta. She was took back by train. She didn't get to fly in a plane. She either drove or took a train usually. And at the age of 36, she had another experience with Jesus calling her. And here's how she said it. These are quotes from one of her wonderful books. Jesus says, "Come be my light." And he's talking about in Calcutta, in India. "I cannot go alone. They don't know me, so they don't want me. Go amongst them and carry me with you into them." And he was talking about the poor in Calcutta. Calcutta certainly at that time, and it still is kind of known as a very, very poor city, full of desperately poor people. Most of us haven't even seen people that are this poor here in the United States. We just don't see it. But in Calcutta, there were some very, very sad people. These living in the streets, sleeping in gutters. They had all kinds of illness. They were starving. It was almost like the society not only didn't care about them, but didn't even know about them. These are the people that she was called to serve. And she called it a call within a call, that she had already been called as a sister of Loreto. But this was a different call where Jesus said, "I want you to go serve the poor, the poorest of the poor." And so in her late 30s, she asked the Pope basically if she could start a new religious order, to leave the Sisters of Loreto and start what she called the Missionaries of Charity, which we all are probably familiar with. And you can see the habit. This isn't a color photo, but the classic pictures you always see her dressed in is the white sari with the blue stripes, the 3 blue stripes. That was her habit. And it took her 3 years to convince the church to let her do this, to go ahead and begin this. So she started the Missionaries of Charity. And they have a fourth vow. So as I mentioned, they not only take a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience, they also take a vow of wholehearted free service to the poor of the poor. So they commit their lives to a wholehearted free service to the poorest of the poor. And this was in Calcutta, in India for the most part. So at the age of 40, she was able to start this new order, Missionaries of Charity. And she started a school. She started a hospital there. She started a leper colony. Remember, you've heard stories about Jesus dealing with lepers. Lepers were just complete outcasts of society. Well, there were lepers in India. She started an orphanage, a nursing home, a family clinic, mobile clinics. And she brought many other people that also adopted those vows to give their lives to serving Jesus by serving the poor. He went on to open additional houses in other parts of India. She opened a house in New York City here in the United States. She opened houses in Venezuela, Rome, Africa, in all the communist countries at the time, Russia, Albania, Cuba, all over the world. All to serve the poor. And this is not the only thing that makes her a saint. This is not the only thing that makes her so special. I mean, that's enough. Just the wonderful commitment that she made to serve the Lord, but also her energy and her commitment to bring so many people. She brought 4,000 people into this ministry of serving the poor. What's so unique about her is just the way she did it. I want you to try to imagine working among such terrible poverty, such sadness, and frankly, hopelessness is what she faced there. When you have millions of people that don't have enough food and need health care, and yet here is this little sister, and I don't know how tall. She must have been maybe 5 feet tall. This little woman who accomplished so much, not because she was rich or powerful, but because she was loving. She was loving, just amazing. So I'm going to go on with some pictures. Here's a picture visiting a hospital where these people are. Again, she took them off the streets. They were just dying. They were just laying in the streets dying. She brings them in here and takes care of them while they die, so they don't die alone. She would take food to people that just didn't have enough food. She talks about one time she goes into a house that she could barely fit through the door, and she couldn't even stand up straight. The roof was so low. And here's a quote from her. I visit the poor. I cannot help them because I don't have anything. Remember, she took a vow of poverty. She doesn't have any money in her purse. She doesn't have a big thing full of food. She has to find people who are willing to give food to these people. She said, I don't have anything to give them, but I go to give them joy. Just going and caring about them was really the power of her ministry. Yes, she could raise money and so forth, but it was really the love that that she and others in this order showed to these people who nobody loved. Everybody gave up with and forgot about it. She says their poverty was very painful for me, you can imagine. But at the same time, it made her happy to see how happy they were, how happy they were that someone was just to be there and pay attention to them. So I love this picture. You can just kind of see that at least they've got a nice roof over their heads and a place to lay down and somebody to care for them. Just touch them. Talk to them. Here's another picture. You can imagine where she's, and I mean literally millions of people in poverty. And she says, I don't look at the masses as my responsibility. I'm not trying to feed a million people. I'm not trying to take care of a million people. I look at the individual. I can only love one person at a time. I can only feed one person at a time. That's just like us, right? That's what's so beautiful about Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa. Just like us, we can help one person. We don't have to help 1 million people or 10,000, just one. Here's another. I love this picture. And again, this is what she taught all of us, is that not all of us can do great things. Some of us can. Some of you all will do great things in your life. But not all of us are going to do great things. But we can all do small things with great love. Just holding this baby. Look at the big crowd around her. She's just holding that baby and giving a little comfort. We can do small things with great love. That's what the Lord Jesus calls us to do. That's what she wants us to understand, is there's nothing stopping us from doing the Lord's work and reaching out and loving the way the Lord loved, one person at a time. Beautiful. Another one of her lessons is, you notice she's always smiling. Look at that beautiful, that wonderful smile in this picture. Wish I'd known her, She says, don't let anyone ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Be the living expression of God's kindness. Kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile. Every time you smile at someone, just a smile, we can all do that. It is an action of love, a gift to that person, a beautiful thing. Look at her. I love that picture. You can get a sense of the slums. I mean, look at that pile of rubble there in front of the place. But she's smiling. Finally, and I'm going to stop in a moment for questions, but finally, she said the main message of the Missionaries of Charity was, I thirst. Jesus thirsts. She says, Jesus wants me to tell you again how much is the love he has for each one of you. Beyond all that you can imagine. Not only he loves you, even more, he longs for you. He misses you when you don't come close. He thirsts for you. He loves you always, even when you don't feel worthy. And if you want to read this, it's a much longer thing, but it's called I Thirst for You. Now, I just want to read one last thing, and I'll ask for your questions. Please feel free to ask me questions. She says, don't you realize that my Father, God in heaven, already has a perfect plan to transform your life, beginning from this moment? Trust in me, trust in God. Ask God every day to enter and take charge of your life, and he will. Jesus promises you before his Father in heaven that he will work miracles in your life. Why? Because I thirst for you, Jesus says. All I ask is that you entrust yourself to me completely. I will do all the rest. So may God bless the dear Saint Teresa of Calcutta. I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions.
I do.
Great. What is your question? Is it Lana?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. What's your question?
Is she a saint?
She is a saint. She was just made a saint, I believe it's 2013. So 7 years ago.
When's her feast day?
What is her feast day? You know what? I meant to look at that and I don't know. I bet you could look it up on Google quicker than I could, right?
We'll look it up. Thank you. Say thank you.
Well, when you look it up, tell us what it is, okay? It was just recently.
Hey, Deacon Lu, it's Stacy Madrano, and my mom is with me. She had a question.
Yes.
I've always heard that she had an experience of the dark night of the soul, like St. John of the Cross, and there was something she carried. Do you know anything about that?
Yes. Actually, this photo here I have, I don't know if you can see this book.
Uh-huh.
It's a fantastic book that talks about what she's asking about is there were times, Mother Saint Teresa had some wonderful encounters with Jesus, right? When at the Black Madonna, and again on the train to India, where she received her call within a call. She felt very, very strong presence. No question about it, Jesus' presence. But as time went on, and she got busy serving and helping all the poor, there were times when she really couldn't really feel Jesus as close to her as she did originally. And she always longed to have that closeness to Jesus again. And it was very hard for her. And like you said, it was like a dark night of the soul that other saints have talked about, where they've had that experience and they want it again. Jesus, I want to feel you that close again. Please, please let me feel you that close again. And she prayed and talked to her priest and her advisor, her spiritual advisor, and she never did feel that closeness again. And she said, "Why, Lord? Why can't I feel you that close again? That's all I want." And her answer was, "I want you to find me in the poor. Find me in the poor. Don't look for me somewhere else. You will find me among the poorest of the poor." And that's why she gave her life, every bit of energy she had was to serving those people, because Jesus said, "That's where you're going to find me." Did that answer your question? Thank you for that question.
Yes.
I have a question.
September 5th.
Thank you, Mike. September 5th is her feast day.
What is your question?
Uh,
No, we can look it up.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Anna.
What was the biggest or nicest thing that Mother Teresa ever did?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody, actually say anyone, because she did so many things. Do you have? I think it would kind of be up to what you might say. Do you know of something you would say was a wonderful thing she did?
Take care of all the poor people. I think.
I really think it would be that's such a good question, and that's why it's hard to answer. It's a good question. I think that would be something like this. I think that's what Jesus would say. Nothing spectacular, but just reaching out to somebody and looking in them in the eye and giving them a smile and making them feel the love of God. To know what it's like to be loved, right? And I'd like to hear your answer to that. Think about it and let me know if you come up with an answer sometime, okay?
Okay.
I'll give you
I have a
that.
question.
Go ahead.
What were those things on the building that were really, really tall in the first picture?
Those are the minarets. These here. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a mosque. And then this is sort of like we'd call them a bell tower, but if you've ever been to a Muslim country, they've got a speaker up there, and that's where they broadcast the prayers. That's called a minaret. There's another one here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
I have a question.
Yes, Spencer.
What religion was Saint Teresa when she was first born?
That's a good question. She was born into a Catholic family. And she was actually baptized the day after she was born. So she was a Catholic Christian, Roman Catholic Christian. Even though I think the reason for your question is she was surrounded by Muslim. And when she was in India, she was surrounded by, there weren't many Christians there. Most people there are Hindu or Muslim. But she was always a Christian, a Catholic.
We changed it to
Deacon Lu,
Yes, Mike.
that question about what are some of her greatest contribution, I forget how it was phrased. She is credited with 2 miracles and why she's considered and was made a saint by the Catholic Church. First miracle, she cured a woman with a lump growing in her abdomen of cancer. And the second is she cured a man of some brain hemorrhages and abscesses that the doctors couldn't cure. And she's credited with that miracle as well.
Thanks, Mike. That's I'm glad you brought that up. I have a little bit more information about that. You may find this interesting. Like Mike said, like Mr. Stukely said, this woman lived in India, and they weren't sure what it was, tuberculosis, but something very serious. And there was a big lump growing in her stomach. They thought it might be cancer, but it was growing, getting bigger and bigger. She was too weak and too sick to have an operation. And so she was praying in the Missionaries of Charity chapel, the chapel there that Mother Teresa started. And she saw light coming from a photo of Mother Teresa. And later on, they put this little medal that Mother Teresa had touched. They put it on this woman's stomach. And they said a prayer asking for Mother Teresa's help. And the woman, Besra, awoke the next day. Her tumor had disappeared. And the medical exam showed that there was no growth left. And the doctors agreed she no longer needed surgery. And for a miracle like this, I mean, there's many stories like that around Mother Teresa. But what makes this one special is that you have a bunch of experts, medical experts, doctors, cancer specialists, theologians, and all come in, and they have to come in and they have to rule out any other reason for healing. And so that they could say it has to be a miracle that happened through Mother Teresa's intercession. She doesn't do the miracle. God works the miracles, but Mother Teresa interceded for this woman. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Whoever hasn't asked one yet, and then we'll come to the other one.
What are vowels?
Go ahead. What?
What are vowels?
Oh, vows. That's a good question. Vows, when I say vows, I mean they're promises. Think about when somebody gets married. That's a vow. I promise to love and honor you all the days of my life. That's a vow. So a nun doesn't get married, but she basically makes vows with Jesus. And it's a promise. It's a unbreakable promise.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else had a question.
I have some questions now. I have 2 questions actually. First off, where can you find the statue? And second off, how did she become sister to Mother?
Good question. So, where is the statue? It's right up here in this country right here, Serbia. And it's in the town, what was it called again? Letnice, Serbia. So it's just a little bit north of of Greece.
What does the Madonna mean?
What does what mean?
What does the Lady Madonna mean?
Oh, well, that is that's just a very special statue that they have attributed miracles to. Some people have witnessed the statue shedding tears. It's very, very special to the people of Serbia in that area.
But it's a statue of the Mother of Christ. Mary.
Yes, holding the infant Jesus, both of them with their crowns. Agnes, as she was called, right? She when she first became a nun and she took her initial vow, she was called Sister Teresa. And then the tradition of the Sisters of Loreto is that once she makes her final vows, when she was about 27 years old, she took the name Mother Teresa. So it was just kind of like the difference between the initial vows and the final vows. That's another good question. She was not a mother in that sense. She was a spiritual mother. I appreciate these questions.
They kind of get in the convent, aren't they, particularly?
Yes. Very often they head the convent or they're a leader. They're like the senior leader of the other nuns who are sisters. I'm going to leave a pause here in case anybody else wants to ask a question. I know it usually takes me a minute to get up the nerve to ask a question.
And while people are thinking about what they might want to ask, I'll just remind the moms and the children who are in children's faith formation, just send Lana an email tomorrow, letting her know that you attended so you get credit for the presentation. We really appreciate everybody being here, and the children give so much life to this. So thank you.
We do.
And Deacon Lu, you did a great job. It was so great to see all those wonderful pictures of Mother Teresa. And yeah. Anything else before we close up tonight?
Thank you.
I think Mother Teresa looked a lot like Saint Therese. When you had that first picture up, I thought, oh my goodness, that's a picture of Saint Therese.
It is, isn't it? Very similar.
Remarkably like Saint Therese here. So that was so funny. And then she took that name, which I think is amazing.
The little flower.
Yes. Yes.
And by the way, I found all these pictures where she's either young or she looks, shall we say, old. They don't have a lot of pictures when she was a middle-aged woman. But this is how most of us knew her, right? Was about this age. Is when really people started to know about her was in the late 80s, in the 80s, 1980s.
A beautiful woman.
Remember that smile, right?
Okay.
Let's all sign off with a smile. Thank you.
And I have one more question before you go.
Please do. Yes.
Why did she go to Calcutta?
Calcutta.
Why did she go where?
Calcutta.
Why? That was just her first assignment when she became a sister of Loreto.
Oh.
That was just where they chose to assign her, was where they already had kind of they were sort of a worldwide order. And I don't know that she had any connection to India other than to serve the poorest of the poor. And that was certainly where you would find the poorest of the poor. But it just happened to be her first assignment where she opened up a school.
And I think it's really important to note that she had a pretty cushy job prior to serving the poor. She was teaching girls in a girls' school. So there was no reason for her to go and do what she did. She was just called, and she did it like at an age where it's not always easy to make changes, right? In your late 30s and you're kind of settled in, you think you're set. And so she really just is a great, I think, model for stay will of the Lord.
Yes, she is. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
Have a great evening, everybody. And we'll meet again next Thursday. And I believe I'm going to be talking about how why it's difficult to be holy like Mother Teresa. So we'll see y'all then.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.